Now that I've given my overall perspective based on 25 years of extensive research and analysis, I'd like to give what I believe to be the definitive answer to three of the most important questions that we face as a species. Number one, why do we have so many problems? Number two, why aren't we solving our problems? Number three, how do we solve our problems? But before I give very simple answers to these three very profound questions, I would like to tell you a little bit more about my special teaching tool, which uses knowledge in a way that's never been seen before. It uses what I call the three stages of knowledge, and that's not to be confused with what Schopenhauer called the three stages of truth. And my special teaching tool uses what Socrates called the problems of knowledge. And even though Socrates said that the problem of knowledge is the key to all of our problems, and even though Socrates said that over 2,400 years ago, we're still going to be looking at knowledge in a way that's never been seen before, because we're not just looking at the problems of knowledge, and we're not just looking at the three stages of knowledge. We're looking at the three stages of knowledge and the problems of knowledge at the same time, because they're all on the same map. In fact, it's sort of like two maps in one. The bottom three boxes are like Plato's map to help us get out of Plato's cave, and the top three boxes are to help us get to paradise. And it all begins with our belief system. And the whole purpose of my special teaching tool is to make sure we don't get tricked and fooled into starting our journey off on the wrong path with false knowledge. You see, the only way to solve problems is to use logic, and there are two criteria that are needed when we use logic to solve problems. One is the structure and the other is the specifics. So I have perfected a very special teaching tool to prove the structure, and then I've created or perfected a three-step process so that you can prove the contents or the specifics or the details. There's not a thing I can say that's going to convince you that there are no logical fallacies in what's in my context or the specifics or the details. But you can prove it to yourself. But we don't want to start with the context. We want to start with the structure. That's one of the ways we're getting tricked and fooled. So the purpose of my special teaching tool is to make sure that we don't get tricked and fooled into taking the first step in the wrong direction. That's why I interconnected two quadrant systems to create my special teaching tool. And they both use two forms of two-value logic, so that each one of the 6 boxes will have an ordered pair and a polar opposite, and will logically connect to all of its adjacent boxes. And altogether there are 18 connections or 18 portals, and then I've identified 281 of the most important pieces out of the millions of pieces that are within this special teaching tool. And once again, the main purpose of this special teaching tool is to make sure we don't use an invalid structure. You see, when you use logic and you want to prove the structure, you have to think of the context as a train, and the structure is the tracks. The tracks are always one way, just like ordered pairs are one way. That's why I'm using two sequential ordered pairs to create my special teaching tool. That may sound complicated, but it's not, because A and B and C are two sequential ordered pairs, and we can interconnect those and make ABC. In the same way, 1 and 2 and 2 and 3 are two sequential ordered pairs, and we can interconnect those and have 1, 2, 3. So what we have when it comes to the three stages of knowledge, remember, knowledge is acquired, applied, manifested. We have thoughts, actions, reactions, beliefs, causes, effects, belief system, lifestyle choices, feedback system. The things we think in the first stage of knowledge, the things we do or have done to us in the second stage of knowledge, and the things we get in the third stage of knowledge. And we can either start our journey off in life with knowledge and end up in paradise where we don't have any problems within our control, or we can start our journey off in life with false knowledge and end up with hundreds of thousands of problems. So what we want to do is understand how not to take the first step in the wrong direction. So we're using two sequential ordered pairs for a reason. Cause and effect. We're living systems. We're subject to the law of cause and effect, just like all matter is subject to Newton's third law of motion, the law of action and reaction. Action and reaction, cause and effect, these are ordered pairs. In fact, the very first quadrant system I created to try to use logic to solve problems was a cause and effect and pleasure and pain quadrant system. To this day, it boggles my mind that I've never seen this before. No one's ever come up with a cause and effect and pleasure and pain quadrant system. And that's how I started. But when I tried to explain everything, I realized, well, where do I put thoughts at? Well, no, thoughts are in a different quadrant system. We have two quadrant systems. We have 8 boxes that can be condensed down to 6 boxes. And we can make this so simple because it's really 3 boxes with pluses and minuses. So solving our problems is simple as working backwards from ABC, working backwards using ABC, or counting backwards from 3. And every 7-year-old child knows how to go 3, 2, 1, and they know their ABCs. So my special teaching tool is so simple. Every 7-year-old child can understand how to use it to do what? Not to prove the context. You have to have a lot of intellect and a lot of knowledge to be able to solve a complex problem and have the context correct. There are no logical fallacies, but the structure is simple. You can tell if you're going the wrong direction, and that's the purpose of my special teaching tool. So when we look at my special teaching tool, we have 3 stages of false knowledge, where we have false knowledge in stage 1, mistakes or bad applications or poor lifestyle choices in stage 2, and then we have hundreds of thousands of problems in stage 3. And most of those problems are 100% within our control based on the things we do. Only a very small percentage of our problems are outside of our control. But we've been tricked and fooled into thinking that most of our problems are outside of our control. Remember, there's something seriously wrong with us. Most of us don't know we have an inaccurate belief system. Most of us don't know that we have false knowledge in place of the knowledge we need in the first stage of knowledge. Most of us don't know that we're making mistakes that are causing problems in the second stage of knowledge. And most importantly, most of us don't know that most of our problems are self-inflicted in the third stage of knowledge. So we want to use my special teaching tool to work backwards. Look at the very bottom right quadrant in my 6-box system. And I'm going to have another video that will go into this much more detail. You can click onto it right here. And this will go into much more detail. You'll actually see how it works. And you see how simple it is. And we work backwards. We look at our problems. If it's outside of control, we can't do anything to that. We have to treat the symptom. Otherwise, when the problem is within our control, we don't want to treat the symptom. That's called putting the cart before the horse. In Latin, it's called modus ponens. So if we're going to use logic to solve our problems, that's the flaw we have right now with just about every major system in charge. They're using the wrong approach. They're treating symptoms for problems that are within our control. You don't do that for a problem within your control. You only treat a symptom when it's outside your control. If you're in an accident or an act of nature, or war, crime, and violence, if something's done to you, you can't prevent that with a thought and an action. Otherwise, heart disease, cancer, diabetes, all these are self-inflicted. It's based on an inaccurate belief system where we're making mistakes and we don't even know it. The sad reality is that most of us are doing things that we think are okay, but they're not okay. They are wrong. And they are the reason why we have so many problems. We are the enemy. We're doing it to ourselves. And then we are the enemy because we're attacking ourselves, the sickest of us, take advantage of us being sick, and they keep us sick. Remember, everything related to health has to be controlled by the status quo to make sure the status quo remains the status quo. And as I mentioned in part 1, I'm not referring to the systems that are involved. I'm talking about a very small group of people that own and control every major sector of human endeavor. And they're misdirecting all of our so-called experts to make sure that none of them and none of us ever figure out that most of our problems are 100% within our control. So the people who we think are experts are not our experts. Doctors are not experts when it comes to a lifestyle-related problem, and 99% of what's happening to us is lifestyle-related. If you get in a car accident, you break a bone, you go to a doctor, that's what they're good for. Nutritionists, they're in the same boat. They're misdirected too. That's why there's more confusion around the subject of nutrition than there is on any other subject. Why is that? Why do we have a Food and Drug Administration? Why are these two combined? We have to wake up and take responsibility. We have to understand that there's a very simple solution to all of our problems. So if you want to have a better understanding of how my 6-box system works, click right here, go to another video that I've already uploaded, that are already filmed rather. It will be uploaded, and you can understand how this simple 6-box system works. And it's so simple, you can bring your children in and say, child, could you make sure we don't take the first step in the wrong direction? Here's the 3 steps. If you can play 2 square, you know how to use my 6-box system. That's how simple this is. Now, as far as the 3 answers to the 3 most important, 3 of the most important questions that we face as a species. Number 1, why do we have so many problems? The reason why we have so many problems has to do with the law of cause and effect, and can be traced back to 11 main events, 5 of which are the 5 main mistakes we're making that are causing most of our problems. The simple answer to the second question, why aren't we solving our problems, has to do with the ripple effect and can be traced back to 21 main problems of knowledge. But there are pieces within pieces when we look at our problems of knowledge. There are duplications. There's a lot more to knowledge than just finding it. We have to apply it. So in effect, we have to go through two of those portals or two of those doorways to solve our problems. The first doorway has 40 obstacles altogether that are keeping us from finding the knowledge we need. And then there are 13 obstacles in the next doorway. If we find the knowledge, we got to apply it. Knowledge is worthless unless we apply it, so we have to apply that knowledge. So there are 53 problems of knowledge right there. The other two problems of knowledge are not in the two portals, they're in the two boxes that are in the first stage of knowledge. That's where there's knowledge that we're missing in the plus A box of knowledge. If I label the boxes A, B, C, pluses and minuses. And then there's that false knowledge we have in the negative A box of false knowledge. And remember, that's what's getting us in trouble more than anything else. We cannot learn anything when we think we already know. So we have to admit that we have false knowledge. And then what's the best way to deal with all 55 of these obstacles? I already mentioned it in part 1. Do the first of my 3-step process. Test an idea as time has come. So, what's the simple answer to the third question? It's simple. All we have to do to solve every problem that's 100% within our control is to satisfy two groups of needs that are based on the law of cause and effect in our anatomy and the ripple effect and the damage we've done to our anatomy, as well as society and the environment. One more time. The simple answer to the first question has to do with the law of cause and effect and can be traced back to 11 main events, 5 of which are causing most of our problems. Simple answer to the second question has to do with the ripple effect and can be traced back to 21 main problems of knowledge, 55 total altogether. And the simple answer to the third question, how do we solve our problems? All we have to do is satisfy two groups of needs. One is based on the law of cause and effect, and the other is based on the ripple effect. There are 12 essential needs and 2 additional temporary needs. Remember, I call this the science and art of solving problems that are 100% within our control. The science is very simple, and for the vast majority of us, that's all we have to do. But we can't change everything overnight, so there is a time and a place to help support the body if it's damaged or impaired in any way, shape, or form. Hoping that it's only impaired and will return to homeostasis and we won't have to do anything. So there really is a true art when it comes to solving problems that are 100% within our control. How do we know what to do? Sometimes the best thing to do is nothing whatsoever. But if the part of your body that's damaged is producing things your body needs, then you better make sure your body gets it. You know, we might need some insulin or thyroxine. Who knows what else we might need? We might even need cholesterol. So solving our problems is a little more complicated now than it used to be. Before, all we had to do is just correct the mistake. But now we've been making mistakes for a long time. We've damaged ourselves, society, and the environment. And now we're going to have to work downstream to an extent. But to really get out of Plato's cave, we got to work upstream. Remember, we're in the third stage of knowledge where all the problems are at. We got to work upstream and go, yeah, we're the enemy. There we are. We're making the mistakes. Go back and go, yep, there's the false knowledge. That's what starts it off. And then we go, oh my God, we're the enemy again. Look what's up there in the doorway. What's the number one source for false knowledge? It's the dark side of our behavior. They're the ones who are keeping us in Plato's cave more than anything else. And remember, the only way to deal with any of these obstacles, in fact, the only way to defeat the rulers of the world is to not focus on them. Focus on ourselves. That's the solution. We all play a role when it comes to solving every problem that is 100% within our control. And all you have to do is be the best that you can be. All you have to do is satisfy these two basic needs, or these two groups of needs. Every other animal strives to survive. Why can't we strive to survive? What is wrong with us? Every animal tries to be the best it can be. Why aren't we doing it? Because society attacked early when the individual was helpless. Before we were even able to walk and talk, our parents taught us the same mistakes that were taught to us. All of our problems begin in childhood. All of our problems can be traced back to our traditions. You see, when you look at your traditions, it includes all the accumulated wisdom and all the accumulated mistakes. So all the great things about our species can be reflected in the wisdom, and all the bad things in the mistakes. Well, why can't we figure it out? Aren't we smart enough? Of course we're smart enough. But we've got the darkest of the dark side of our behavior screwing us, keeping us ignorant, controlling what we know so that we don't know what to do. So all you have to do is find and apply knowledge that's currently missing. And I explain this a little bit better in the video that goes into my special teaching tool. And I'll need to do some follow-up videos to put this more together, but eventually I'll have a website that will tie all this together. So when you're looking at my special teaching tool, where out of the 281 pieces I've assigned whole numbers to 120 and sub numbers to the other 161 to make this easier to follow. Don't complicate it. Don't look at all the pieces. And then 212 of those pieces are in the 6 boxes, and 69 of those pieces are in the 18 portals. 53 of those pieces are in 2 of the portals we have to go through, or 2 of the doorways. We already talked about that. 40 in the first, 13 in the second. The other 16 pieces are in the other 16 portals. And then the 212 pieces that are in the 6 boxes, that may sound complicated, but it's not, because those come from 128 pieces, that come from 25 main pieces, that come from 5 main groups, where there's 14, 5, 3, 2, and 1 respectively. So that means there's 25 pieces in 5 groups, and if all 5 pieces in all 5 groups were in all 6 boxes, that'd be 150 pieces, but they're not. We have 24 and 24 in the first stage of knowledge, 20 and 20 in the second stage of knowledge, and 20 and 20 in the third stage of knowledge. So there's 128. Then I added 4 pieces to hide pieces in. So out of the 120 pieces, there's another 57 pieces that need to be added onto that are hidden, that were given sub numbers. And that means there's actually a total of 177 main pieces within my special teaching tool. And then there are millions of pieces within those pieces, because every piece is like a Russian doll. And out of those millions of pieces, I've identified 104 pieces. So 104 and 57 is 161, 161 and 120 is 281. Or you could say there's 177 and 104. 177 main pieces, 104 sub pieces that are within those main pieces. But I want to make this simple. In fact, it was interesting when I developed this special teaching tool over the years. It took me a long time before I gave it a universal numbering system, because I knew things were changing so much that I didn't want to keep having to remember brand new numbers. And when I finally did assign numbers to everything, it was fascinating for me to go back and look at what I had done, because I'm gifted mathematically, and I was able to hide pieces at the right place because I knew I didn't want to focus any attention on them. So that's why I hid 57 pieces. I didn't even identify them initially. When I first said, I got all the pieces I want to identify. Where are they? Here they are, 120 of them. And then I go, well, I didn't really identify those. Well, I can still identify them. I can give them sub numbers. But then I realized, well, to really be accurate, to show every piece of the puzzle, I had to include those 57. And now the other 140 sub pieces come from 24 pieces, 60 pieces, and 20. 24 pieces are in the portals. This is why there are so many problems of knowledge. There are 6 sub pieces in piece number 7, 8 sub pieces in piece number 8, and 10 sub pieces that are mixed in between 18 and 54. So that's 24 pieces. And then in the boxes, piece number 35 has to do with 10 subsequent needs, or 34 rather, has to do with 10 subsequent needs from having a weak connection to everything around us, or for being so sick. And those are duplicated in all 6 boxes. So there are 60 sub pieces right there. And then when I identified the 5 main mistakes, they turned out to be sub pieces, but I didn't want them to be sub pieces. I gave them whole numbers. So now we have 20 more duplications where I hid pieces as sub pieces, only so that I could show whole numbers, because they're too important. Now that will make a whole lot more sense when you see my other video where I explain those piece numbers. Right now, I'm not even going to try to explain it in more detail. Hopefully this will intrigue you to watch my other video. So if you haven't watched part 1, please do so. This will help you understand the 3 stages of knowledge better. And then be sure to follow this video up by looking at another video I've done to help you understand the 6-box system that I created, which I've given many names. I call it the Epiphany Maker. I've called it Plato's Map, the Hero's Map, the Ultimate Schematic, and that's the video you'll see. It'll be the Ultimate Schematic, and I'll probably end up calling that video the Ultimate Schematic, because that's exactly what it is. It shows where all the pieces are, so now you can't get tricked and fooled, and that's how the whole world works. The people who rule the world are masters of illusion. They're masters of misdirection. They're psychopaths, they're con artists, they're magicians. And all they have to do is keep us distracted. All they have to do is to point our so-called experts east and tell them to look for a sunset. Hey, I'm doing everything right the way I'm going. little did I know the very first step was wrong. So that's the purpose of my special teaching tool, is to make sure we don't put the cart before the horse. Don't be guilty of modus ponens. Forget all that other garbage and logic. Remember, our educational systems are controlled. Logic is supposed to make things simpler, not more complicated. When I started studying logic, I thought, God, whoever put this together can't even put it together right. Plus, we're studying a lot of things that aren't important. There's only 2 things we need to know when it comes to solving problems. And that's those 2 forms of 2-value logic that all of us are born with. Ordered pairs and polar opposites. Sounds too simple. In fact, Aristotle was criticized for, oh, you're only using 2-value logic. You're not using multi-value logic or infinite value logic. Well, you need to use that when you look for the specifics, but not the structure. The structure has to use 2-value logic so you don't get tricked and fooled. And you never start looking for logical fallacies in systems with invalid structures. That's a big mistake all of us are making. Don't start looking for the structure, for the logical fallacies in a structure, in the specifics or the contents, because you may never find any. But it doesn't matter, because when it comes to logic, you have to have the structure and the logic. The structure must be valid, and there cannot be any logical fallacies. So start with the structure. Use my 6-box system. Use what Sherlock Holmes did in those novels. Eliminate the impossible. So that's what we want to do. We want to exclude the impossible, eliminate the impossible. And we do that by looking at the structure first. And what you're going to find is that all the systems that are in charge are in portals 106 and 105, giving the illusion that we're not having any negative effects. It's an illusion. That's not the solution. We got to get off this negative horizontal loop. We got to get out of Plato's cave. We got to stop making this translative move. We got to make a transformative move. Got to make a vertical move. Got to find that knowledge we're missing, which will be designated as piece number 1, and that will be a circle with a dotted line that's outside of our circle inside the plus A box of knowledge. I have it in a dotted line because it used to be inside of our circle long ago. So the solution to our problems is, oh, I got to find a cure for this, poppycock. We know what to do. We lost it. That's the fall of mankind. You see, long ago, our ancestors made a mistake. They fell in love with it. They got addicted to it. They ran to the denial. Then they passed it on down to their children. And now it's part of our traditions. So traditions, that's piece number 4. Big piece of the puzzle. Piece number 1, don't have the knowledge we need. Piece number 2, false knowledge in its place. Piece number 3, the dark side of our behavior. Piece number 4, traditions. Oh my God. Look what traditions is doing to us. Piece number 5, a malfunctioning survival mechanism. Piece number 6, fear. Piece number 7, subsequent needs that can also be problems of knowledge. 8, the wrong approach. And there are a lot of ways we use the wrong approach, and I only identified 8 of them. And I'm just getting going. So go to my other video, and you can check out what these other piece numbers mean. And eventually I'll have a website up and running where you can go to my website, you can see all the piece numbers. And then if you want to find out more about piece number 3, for example, I've got hundreds and hundreds of files on some of these piece numbers. Some of the files have thousands of pages in it. So if you want more details, I have it available, but I want to make this as simple as possible because it doesn't have to be complicated. In fact, if you want to make it simple, forget everything about my 6-box system, the ultimate schematic, forget everything about logic, just do the first of my 3-step process. Take the second step, or go on to the second stage of the hero's journey, accept the mission, prove to yourself that you can totally transform your life in a way you will not believe. So, we have to keep in mind, if we don't reach the tipping point, things will never change. It's up to you right now that's listening to this to help other people test an idea as time has come. Find the people you know that need this badly and do it yourself, and let's reach the tipping point. As I said before, I know one thing for sure. If you guys do this, you're in for a treat.